Hey, everyone, this is Tara Lynn. I am the artist behind Paint, Rinse, Repeat, and today we are painting Tree of Life. This is a really fun painting for springtime or anytime, and you'll be surprised at how easy it is. Before we get started, I'm going to go over the supply list quickly. We're using acrylic paint, and I have the following colors. I have burnt sienna, I have raw sienna, so two different shades of brown. I've got phthalo green and phthalo blue. I've got a deep yellow, and I've got white and black. So those are the colors that I'm using today. Of course, you can substitute a lot of these colors for things that you have and still come up with beautiful results, so don't hesitate to do that. I am creating today on a 16 by 20 canvas, and you have outlines for a variety of sizes. Choose whichever one works best for you. And I have the design pre-transferred. And for this one, you are going to want to make the shape of the tree darker. So I went over this with a Sharpie. This is usually something I do when I'm creating online so that you can see on camera. But this time I encourage you to do it as well so that you can see uh, the shape of the tree through some of the background that we make. So now's a great time to make sure that gets done. You can pause the video if you need to. I'm creating with acrylic paint, so I need water to clean my brushes, paper towels to dry them off and get the paint off, a palette to put my paint on. And then as far as brushes go, I most often use small, medium, and large flat brushes and small, medium, and large round brushes. And so just have a variety of sizes, and if you don't have these available to use what you have on hand. You can still end up with a really beautiful result. So that's what I'm going to be doing, or that's what I'm going to be using today. And the first thing that we're going to do is put some color on this background. And so I'm going to get some white and some phthalo green. I'm going to use quite a bit of white for this. And I just need a pinch of this phthalo green. I don't need a lot of this color. Okay. And actually that might even be too much. So I might pull some of this off to the side. But I want to tint my white to a really, really pale color. Yes, this is good. You can't see it because I've got it off screen, but this is what I'm working with. Really, really pale. And then what I'm going to do is I want to spread this all over my canvas, but I really want this to be kind of nice and thin. So I'm going to add some water and really just move this around the canvas. And I'm going to use up and down brush strokes, vertical brush strokes, and lots of water. I'm going to thin this out quite a bit so it's a nice, light, thin background shade. And I only need to go so far as this landscape line down here. All right, while this paint is wet, I don't need to wash off my brush, but I'm going to wipe it off. I'm going to get some phthalo blue, and I'm going to start blending this from the edges inward. I want my edges to be a little darker. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that blue and just kind of blend it inward. And I need to do this on both sides. And if you need to, when you get to the point where you've got some blue in there, if you've covered up a whole lot of this center area, just go ahead and pick up some more of the lighter color and you can blend that outward. Kind of recover some of that light tone. And before I'm finished, I'm just going to add one more swoop of phthalo blue on each end. I just want that to be the darkest on the edges. All right, so that's our first step. So just blend a background until you're happy. Again, I say this a lot, but your background is not the focus of this painting, so don't stress too much about it. We're going to have this big, beautiful tree, and that's going to be the focus. We just want a nice gradient of sorts in the background there. So that is our first step. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to get my sample set up here where I can see it, just so I don't struggle with that. All right. Next, what we're going to do is pull some yellow. Now I've got my deep yellow, and I'm going to mix yellow and white, but I want it to stay pretty bright yellow. So let me get some of this on my palette here. I have gone absolutely bonkers with this phthalo green. I'm going to clean some of this up just so I don't have a giant mess on my palette here. All right, cleaning my brush because I'm mixing a new color. All right, so I'm going to say 2 parts of this deep yellow to 1 part white. We still want to stay pretty bright, so I don't want to take this color too light. All right, and then what we're going to do is paint the ground. So everything below that horizon line. Now, if your paint up here is a little wet, you want to go ahead and dry that. So if you've got a heat gun, a hair dryer, you want to make sure this blue is dry because we don't want to pull that down into the earthy portion of our painting. So I'm just going to zap mine real quick. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover this ground area with this bright yellow. All right, so I've got this layer in here. I can still see some of the blue where I pulled my sky into the ground area, and that's okay because in the next step, we are going to blend some burnt sienna into the ground. So burnt sienna is kind of a reddish brown. I'm going to get some burnt sienna out here. And so right around the top of this, I guess this is our horizon line, right? This is where the ground meets the sky. I'm going to pull a line of burnt sienna, but then I'm also going to kind of just pull this burnt sienna downward into my painting. And I like to have a little variation in here, so I'm going to go back through and just kind of add another couple of swoops in some areas. Make the color a little stronger in parts. And then, of course, blend it down again. Alrighty, I am pretty happy with that layer there. So we're going to let that sit and we're going to start adding some of the very deep dark background leaves. And for this, I'm going to switch to a round brush. And I need some phthalo green and Mars black, or black, whatever black you're using. Phthalo green and black. And I want more phthalo green than black. So I'm going to say 4 parts black to 1 part phthalo green, or just a smidge of black. We don't want to go too dark. Black is a very strong pigment, but this is going to be the shadowy, the darkest of the leaves. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of plan out where these leaves are going to go. And what I want you to do is on either side of your tree, where the end branch is down here, there's kind of a visual line. And from that line, there's going to be just a big circular shape that comes around here. So the first thing I'm going to do is plan out that shape. So all of our tree leaves are going to fall around this shape here. So here and there, I'm just going to make these dashes all over with my round brush. And this is phthalo green and black. And you don't have to avoid the tree limbs or anything like that. These leaves are way in the back. So we're going to add over the top of these leaves anyway. So I added kind of one clean swoop. Not a lot of those are overlapping. I'm going to come back through and just randomly add some more. All right, and when you get some good coverage here, you can dip right into your phthalo, which is going to be a little lighter than the color we just used. I'm just going to add in another layer with phthalo unmixed with any color. I'm kind of just following the same arch shape all the way around the tree. So I did a layer of phthalo in black and then a layer of phthalo. I'm going to clean off my brush. I'm going to add a little texture to the ground. So I got my brush nice and clean. I'm going to go into my burnt sienna. Same color that I had earlier to blend into the ground. This time I'm going to kind of go across this arch here, and I'm just going to tap in some horizontal dashes along the top of the ground here. And you don't want them to be even. This is just kind of texture-y, so just kind of tapping them in here and there. More in some places than others. All right, so for the next color, we're going to start filling in parts of this tree. And so I'm going to mix a good bit of my burnt sienna with some black. So I can pull some of this off to the side. And for comparison, I would say maybe 4 parts burnt sienna to 1 part black. We want this to be pretty dark, but still hanging out in that brown tone. So that looks fairly black on camera, but it's got a nice brown shade to it. You'll be able to see the brown with your eye. Don't add so much black that you cannot see the black there. So what I'm going to do is fill in this tree, and I can still see my outlines. I can still see them on camera. But what I'm going to do is leave space in between these twists and turns in the tree so I don't lose that. So I'm going to start filling in each of these parts. Now down here at the bottom where the roots grow, I am going to come back and work on this, but right now we're just filling in space. So I'm going to stop pretty close to the top there. I'm going to take these branches all the way out. We're filling in all of this space. And just the important thing to remember when you're doing trees and branches, I can let these stop once they reach the leaves because we're going to layer upward. But the thing about branches is that they are always thickest closest to the tree. So the farther out we go with these branches, the thinner they need to be. And you can achieve that just by lightening the pressure on your brush if you're using a round brush. If you struggle with that, you can always get a thinner brush as you go out towards the edges. And it is always okay to adjust the shape of your tree a little bit. So, for example, if I want to throw in a branch somewhere, I can do that. If your paintbrush runs off and adds an extra little branch, that's okay. Don't stress about that little stuff. All right, down at the bottom, the roots, I just kind of stopped. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull each of these thicker areas into one root. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, just find kind of a large root and turn that area thinner and thinner as it goes outward. For to the left, you may have to draw a little piece of that tree kind of angling off into one of these. And so once you have that figured out, I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller round brush using the same color. I'm not mixing anything different. Just this same burnt sienna and black mixture. And then all of these other little roots, I'm just going to pull off of one of these main areas. So very similar to the tree limbs, and this is why I said it's a good idea just to outline your design with a Sharpie marker, and that helps you see all of these little detailed roots down here. But of course, it is super easy just to draw them in on your own because there's no need to be exactly the same. You can change the root design and still have a beautiful tree. We're still pretty early in this design and it's already looking pretty cool. right, now I'm going to go right into some black, maybe thin it out just a pinch. And what I'm going to do is come back into this tree, and wherever I have a twist, at the bottom of that twist, I'm just going to add some black to darken that up. Underneath, on the underside of some of these tree branches, again, I'm just going to add a little black shadow that follows the bottom of some of these branches. And that just gives us a little shadow and dimension. And it doesn't have to be every branch and every place, but just a little shadow on these tree branches adds a lot. And then on this little stumpy part here, I'm going to add a shadow on the right side. So touch in your shadows wherever you think they might need to be. You can pull some of that black shadow area down into some of your roots if you want to, just to add some different variation in the color. Notice my music turned off there and then turned back on. All right, so we've got some shadow in there. Loving that. All right, next thing we're going to do is mix up some lighter greens for some more coverage up in the trees. And so I'm going to mix yellow, phthalo green, and a pinch of white. And I'm going to go pretty heavy with my yellow. I'm going to clean off my round brush, same brush I used earlier. So I'm going to go heavy on this yellow. So lots of yellow, little phthalo green. Let's see where that gets us. Perfect. And then a little white. Loving it. Okay, this is a great color. All right, so I'm going to take this green and I'm going to start filling in some area up here. Same idea. I'm just randomly adding short, quick strokes to make leaves. And I don't want you to overthink it. Okay, we're not evenly spacing them, nothing like that. We're just adding layers of leaves. Following the shape of this tree all the way around. Then I'm going to mix another color. Let's see. Phthalo green, probably twice as much yellow. I want this to be more yellow than green. So this is going to be one of our lighter shades here. Heavy on the yellow. Add a little more white. So this color we want slightly yellower and slightly whiter than the green we just did. And you can see the process here is just adding more and more leaves, lighter and lighter as we go. All right. So this time I'm going to focus the lighter colors. I'm going to leave some of these branches on the inside a little more bare. And I'm going to take this lighter color and really just start filling out the upper and outer part of the tree. So I'm probably even going to just do 2 layers of this. So once I work my way around, I'm going to come back through, just add some more. All right. Now with my dirty brush, I don't even really have to wash it. I'm going to go right into some yellow and start making some yellow dots in here. Again, kind of focusing on the outside of the tree. And then we're going to do white and yellow and kind of get a nice lemony color in there. And then, oops, that lost its lemon. Here we go. All right, so we've got a lot of leaf coverage there. I am loving it. One thing I would recommend, maybe go back into your phthalo and just add a few strokes of dimension kind of closer to the inside of this tree. All right, clean off your brush. Now I'm going to get some raw sienna, which is our lighter of the browns. This one is more of a yellow brown. So I'm going to get some of that on my palette. All right, we're going to add some of the highlights onto the tree trunks. So get kind of a small to medium size brush, and I'm going to mix the raw sienna, right now 1 part raw sienna to 1 part burnt sienna. And this is just going to make a lighter tree trunky color. Okay, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pull it in where I want my highlights to be on these tree pieces. And so on the parts of the tree, I've got some really dark areas where I did that black brown. So we're going to pull in some of these lighter colors on the opposite sides of that. So on the top of the branches, I can add some lighter highlights. And they would go on the opposite side of where you had the dark highlights. Same thing with each of these curved sections. I'm adding a lighter part, kind of opposite of the black. And then, like on this part on the top, it would have a little more of that highlight. Same thing here, just up at the top. And then I'm going to take this mix. So this was equal parts burnt umber and raw umber. And I'm going to add some yellow to that mix. And this is going to be an even lighter highlight. Okay. And I'm going to take this yellow, and I've got a whole lot here on my brush. And you can just pull in just even a lighter. And so this helps us kind of fill in those gaps that we left. And add more dimension in here. Oops, sorry about that. My music. I'm bumping stuff and changing my music, having music issues today, y'all. All right, so there's some highlights on my tree. Really kind of liking how that's looking. So we're getting towards the end where we really want to start thinking about finishing touches. Here, maybe you want some additional highlights. So maybe some of this raw sienna and white would make a nice bright highlight. And so you can kind of pull that in areas. Now for this, I'm using kind of a nice thin brush and just making some fun little whimsical marks wherever that lighter highlight would come into play. But these are just our finishing touches, y'all. So wherever you feel like you need some brightness in there, go ahead and add it. This is your painting. I am going to also add in just a little bit of grass. So look at the greens that are left on your palette and just kind of have a play with them. So this isn't grass where we can see each individual little blade, okay? So I'm just going to come through and kind of tap in some of this light green color that I've got left on my palette, and I'm just going to tap it in right where my horizon line is. So this is a nice finishing touch just to add a little more color. Now I'm not doing each individual little blade of grass. I'm just kind of tapping in the suggestion of grass here, okay? So kind of just tapping in that green color, varying heights, but as you can see, not individual strokes of grass, okay? And I just follow that all the way around here. Can even go in with some darker greens, so maybe a grassy green color in certain areas and just vary that up a bit. I notice my highlights just feel a whole lot more subtle this time around. Um, and so I'm just gonna adjust those a little bit and maybe go a little brighter on my highlights. I feel like on my sample, I was really bright with those. But remember, your painting, you can go as bright as you want on some of your highlights, as dark as you want on some of your shadows. This is totally yours. So Um, remember, each and every time I paint, I end up with a slightly different result, and it varies just based on my mood and the way I make brush strokes and all of that. So give yourself a little grace, but I thought this was a super fun painting. The last thing that I need to do, and I'll do this off camera, is paint the edges, but otherwise we are pretty much done. This is our Tree of Life painting. Um, I promised you it would be pretty easy, and I'm happy with the results here. So I cannot wait to see what you create. Please consider sharing with me. You can tag me on the socials, hashtag Paint Rinse Repeat or at Paint Rinse Repeat, and I will see that. Or you can join me in my Facebook group. It's free to join. You just do a search for Paint Rinse Repeat group, and that will pop up for you. You can also find more information about my supporter membership through my Facebook page. And that includes each and every painting I do every month for only $9.99. It's a great value, and we would love to cheer you on in your art journey and grow with you as a painter. So I would love for you to consider that. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you next time.